The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Here's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove. What is the name of this show? Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show. We're talking trades, how they impact your fantasy team, the wild card race, the council curse, and the ever so popular weekly waiver wire ads and drops. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show.
Play ball.
Welcome in to an all-new edition of the Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show presented by BellyUpFantasySports.com, Righteous Felon Jerky, and Seat Geek. We've got a lot of baseball to talk about tonight. I'm your host, Vince Stover. I am joined by the senior fantasy writer at BellyUpFantasySports.com. I'm also trying to type something right now as I'm doing this. And we chose not to trade him at the trade deadline. Decided to hang on to him. He is the one and only Kevin Wilson. Hey, Kev, how you doing, man?
Well, as I explained to you pregame, I'm coming to you live from a hotel because, as you know, we live in Dallas, and our house decided that it would run out of AC today. And so we are coming to you live from Holiday Inn, and so we're making it work. It's cool, so I'm good, and we have baseball to talk about, so I'm really good.
Things are heating up in the Wilson house.
They are.
Trade deadlines got it all crazy over there. So,
that's right.
Yeah, well, we've got a lot to talk about. I'm sorry to hear that for you guys. Glad that you got somewhere that you can be that's cool as well. And let's see here, on Thursday, I was doing a show with my dad, and my internet went out right in the middle of the show. So
I noticed that, and I was kind of like, "Oh, what's happening here?"
So we pulled the ripcord on that one, and next week we're going to try to do 4 different divisions to cover instead of just 2. So we'll make up for it. So hopefully tonight your air stays on and my internet stays on, and everything will wrap up well. Let's jump into segment number 1. We call it our Fantasy Burner. The Fantasy Burner segment is presented by SeatGeek. It's your one-stop shop for all things tickets. You're going to go to a game, you're going to go to a concert, you're going to go somewhere you need a ticket. Well, you go to SeatGeek, SeatGeek.com. If you use the code BellyUpSports, you're going to get $20 off your purchase. So again, SeatGeek.com, BellyUpSports is the code to use. We are up on the trade deadline. Lots of trades, not very few major trades. I don't even know that I would consider any of them to be major, but a couple interesting ones at the very least to talk about tonight, and specifically how it's going to impact fantasy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through some of these trades, and then we'll discuss guys that we think is worth, if it changes their fantasy stock at all, going to a different team, and I guess, or maybe if it's good or bad for them to go there. So let's start on the offensive side of things. Several trades that went down in the last 24 hours. Isaac Paredes, he says that weird. Third baseman. He goes from Tampa to Chicago. Christopher Morel back to Tampa in that trade. Jesse Winker goes from Washington to the Mets. Jazz Chisholm goes from Miami to the Yankees. Austin Hayes from Baltimore to Philly. Randy Arozarena went from Tampa to Seattle. And then a couple catchers. Danny Jansen from Toronto to Boston, and Carson Kelly from Detroit to Texas. That's the most recent trade out there as of right now. Of these guys, Kevin, who do you think has the biggest change to their fantasy stock?
Well, I have to be disappointing, but I don't see a whole lot of change coming for any of these guys. And the reason why I say that is I would expect, because we talked about Jazz Chisholm. We talked about that quite a bit ago, and going to the Yankees, and it looked like that was going to be a situation where he was going to play second base for them. But Gleyber Torres' bat has come alive. And then, just as you think that Verdugo was going to go down the drain, he might still. But all of a sudden, he's got, 9 hits or something like that in his last 2 or 3 games. And Giancarlo Stanton comes off the IL this week. So where exactly they're going to play him is still to be determined. They didn't make this trade not to have him in their lineup. It's going to bump him up some because, let's face it, he went from one of the worst scoring teams in baseball to the Yankees. They've got a great lineup, and they need a boost. But now they've got more bats than they have places, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him. And so I'm a little cautious to say that he's going to get a big jump in his production. So if you have him, of course you're going to just ride him, but just don't be expecting he's going to go up New York and blow the doors off the place.
Yeah, I agree. I think I like Austin Hayes as the guy that's going to get positive out of this. Going from Baltimore, who's loaded with young talent, and Cedric Mullins out there has been playing some really good defense. There's a lot of traffic in Baltimore. You go to Philly, where Marsh, who hit a home run, I think today, but was 0 for 23 coming into the day. I think there's going to be opportunity there in Philadelphia for him. He's a guy that's been around. He's produced some. He's had some good moments. He's still not going to be your top tier outfielder in fantasy baseball, but I think that the boost I think he gets is probably the most out of this. I'm interested to see Christopher Morel, and we'll talk more about some Tampa guys when we get to ads and drops. But I'm interested to see what a change of scenery does for him. He's still young, and he just had a really tough year this year in Chicago. So I'm intrigued to see if maybe he starts playing a little bit more free, being down there in Tampa. Little to no expectation down there. I like Isaac Paredes. I think he's a good ball player. I like him fantasy wise as well. I don't think he gets hurt by going to Chicago. And then Randy Arozarena, I mean, does he get better? I'm not sure that he does. I wouldn't say that he's going to get worse. I don't think he's going to be bad necessarily. I'm not sure that I'm not sure how that move helps a ton when it comes to fantasy baseball, of course. The catchers, none of them are going to be the primary catchers. We talked about this last week or the week before when we said, hey, be careful with catchers in the trades, because a lot of times if they get traded to a good team, well, that team already has a catcher. So they're going to be, splitting time, helping take some innings off of the other guys. So fantasy wise, I don't think that Jansen or Kelly gets a lot of boost here either. So yeah, kind of an underwhelming trade stories right now when it comes to the offensive side of things. I really think it picks up once you get to relief pitchers, but we'll get to that in just a minute. Any other thoughts on these offensive guys that got traded?
Well, I just want to, get on board with you about Arozarena. He wasn't having that great a year anyway. And he goes to a better team, but it's not a better offense.
Yeah.
And so that's a problem to me. And if this is the only bat that Seattle brings in, that's a D- to me. And so, as you mentioned, there's only one team in in baseball, I guess, that has the worst offense than the Mariners, and that's the Chicago White Sox. Randy Arozarena is not the answer for that. It could be maybe the plus sign a little, but it's not the answer. So I agree with you 100% on that.
All right, let's go to starting pitchers. Only two of note. James Paxton goes from L.A. to Boston, back to Boston, and Zach Eflin from Tampa to Baltimore. There were some earlier trades. Savali went to Milwaukee and things like that a few days earlier. But James Paxton goes from the Dodgers to Boston, Eflin from Tampa to Baltimore. Let's talk about both of these guys. What does it do for James Paxton going back to Boston?
It does absolutely nothing. Okay. Because you remember he was DFA'd by the Dodgers earlier in the week. He might be the only pitcher in the history of baseball that's 10-2 on the season to go get DFA'd by a team. And he goes to Boston. That's not a good pitcher's park. If you look at his underlying metrics, they're all bad. And so I would want nothing whatever to do with him in fantasy. And so, even though he's an ex-Dodger, I'm supposed to like him and everything else, but I don't like that at all. going to Boston's not the spot, I don't think, for him. And but as far as Zach Eflin, I'm way over my skis on him because I got him in 2 different fantasy leagues, and him going and it's a much better team. It's a much better offense. He doesn't have to be the guy to carry the thing because that's Corbin Burns' position. So I like this trade. I like what it does to his fantasy. It bumps him up, and I like this a lot. So that's my thoughts on those 2 guys.
So let's start with James Paxton. We've got this guy going back to Boston who was there last year. And he was 4.5 ERA when he was there last year. 7-5 was his record. Nothing spectacular. He goes to the Dodgers this year. He lowered his ERA slightly to 4.43. He's 8-2, but he's
8-2. I'm sorry, not 10-2, 8-2.
Hey, close enough.
Yeah, he still might be the only guy that's ever been DFA at 8-2.
Yeah, he's 35 years old, so he's not young. You look at Boston and you say, okay, well, what does this do for Boston? Why go get him? I think part of the reason why is because they know him, so they already know what they're working with. But you add him to Tanner Houck, Nick Pivetta, Brian Bello, and Cutter Crawford. I don't, Boston's in the hunt. They're in the wild card hunt. They're actually in the division hunt to a degree. I'm surprised this is the direction you go here. I feel like there's some starting pitchers out there that could have been good and helpful for you. So yeah, I don't think the James Paxton situation is going to do much for Boston or for James's fantasy value. But then you go to Baltimore and you look at Zach Eflin. You throw him into a rotation that's Corbin Burns, Grayson Rodriguez, Dean Kremer, and Albert Suarez. Eflin is only 30 years old. I would have thought he was older than that, but he's only 30 years old. This year he's at 4.09, which has been around kind of where he's been in his career. 5-7 on the season, which is not good, of course. But last year's where he had his breakout with 16-8 on the year, 3.5 ERA. I think this is a good thing for Zach Eflin. I think this promotes him a little bit closer to where he was last year. Maybe not right to where he was last year, but I think it puts him closer to that. Baltimore's an interesting team, and I'm curious to see what happens with them the rest of the way. We'll talk about them more in the next segment. But yeah, I like the Eflin deal. I think that was a good move, and so I think it's just a matter of him settling in. I'd be weary of his first start in Baltimore, but after that, I think we'll see some progress.
Which is tomorrow, by the way.
Okay, he's right on it.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the relievers. And I love some of these reliever trades. Jason Adam goes from Tampa to San Diego. Carlos Estevez goes from the Angels to Philadelphia. Nate Pearson from Toronto to the Cubs. Ryan Stanek from Seattle to the Mets. Yimi Garcia returns to Seattle in that trade. Or excuse me, not in that trade. I apologize. But Yimi Garcia goes to Seattle from Toronto, which is why they traded Ryan Stanek. AJ Puk to Arizona from Miami, and Sir Anthony Dominguez goes to Baltimore from Philly. That was in the Austin Hayes trade. I think there's value here in a couple of these guys, Kevin. How do you feel about the relievers?
Well, as we talked about, I believe it was last week before that, if your league values holds as it should, even though I made this statement on Reddit the other day and someone said, well, holds are irrelevant. Well, you need to get with the program, okay, first of all. Second of all, but if you're in a league that doesn't value holds, I don't think maybe any of these guys, it helps their fantasy value. Because none of these guys are guaranteed to be the closer. None of them. And so you need to watch these like was it Estevez?
Estevez, yeah.
Okay, Carlos says, I like him. He was pitching well on an Angels team, which gives him credit right out of the gate. But he's not guaranteed to be the closer over there.
Oh, he's not going to be the closer, yeah.
No, because it could be Hoffman and stuff. And so all of these guys, even AJ Puk, going to Arizona. He was a disaster as a starter, but he's been fabulous as a setup guy.
Yep.
And so all of these guys, if your league values holds, then all of these guys, I like their situation. But if it doesn't, then you're going to have to wait and see if any of them wind up to be closers. Because if they're not, then I don't see a bump in their value.
Yeah, that's the deal, right? And this is the same thing we talked about with catchers. Relievers that get traded at this time of year very rarely end up being closers on the team. That being said, AJ Puck is a guy that goes into a situation where Seawald hasn't been perfect in Arizona.
Far from it.
Right. The team hasn't been great. Justin Martinez might be the next guy in line for that closer job, but I think there's potential there for him, especially if they Seawald slips at all, whatever from there. Yimi Garcia, he is going to be the setup guy in Seattle. Munoz is the closer, but again, Munoz gets injured or slips at all, he's going to be for sure the guy that steps up. Philadelphia, they're a little bit more loaded back there. I think that Estevez could steal the job, could get some opportunities for saves as well. But here's the deal. We're in a league that has holds. I think Jason Adam gets a much better place. I think Carlos Estevez, a much better situation.
Obviously.
Yimi Garcia, I love Yimi Garcia. I'm big, high, and in on Yimi Garcia, and I love this move for him. It helps him as well. And then AJ Puck, I'm a little bit more leery of him, but just because of some of the struggles that he has had. But again, when you talk about opportunities for saves, I think he may have the best opportunity to earn some saves out of this whole group from there. And I like Sir Anthony Dominguez as well going to Baltimore. He's not going to get saves there, but I like that for him as well. So I think there are, if you have holds, I think those guys are really solid. Ryan Stanek, I dropped him in a league. I don't like him in New York at the Mets. I don't think that's a good spot. Even if you have holds, I don't think that's a good spot. Nate Pearson doesn't get me excited either. I'm not sure on that one as well. So those two guys, I'm not big on. But the other relief pitchers, I think they got put in pretty good situations. And I think Jason Adam, by the way, is, I mean, if you don't have holds in your league, you may not even know who Jason Adam is. But he is it. I mean, he can do it. San Diego is a team that has been generally underperforming, although they have started to turn it around a little bit. I'm looking right now to see their bullpen and what it's shaping up at right now. Let's see here. Well, maybe here it comes. All right. So Robert Suarez, who's been really solid as a closer there. Jason Adam, it looks like he's going to move right into that eighth inning spot. So again, if Suarez struggles at all, there you go. Any of those guys that are in the eighth inning right now on these new teams, you got to watch them because there's a good chance they can move into the ninth. Yeah,
that's the key. You got to watch them, and because a lot of these guys aren't universally owned,
right?
And so if you see them move into the closer spot, go ahead and swoop in there. And you mentioned Puck. He hasn't given up an earned run in his last 15 appearances. I was really surprised because AJ Puck, as I said, was a complete disaster as a starter. So I rejected him altogether, was paying no attention to him, whatever. Then I come to see, wait a second, this dude is a great relief pitcher. So, and Seawald has been anything other than great. Yeah. And so if you've got holds, this is a guy I would go after right now.
I like it. All right. Any other thoughts on the trades? I know we don't have, there's still potential for some more to come down. A couple of guys getting DFA'd and different things like that too. But I don't see anything major. You know, the White Sox are they going to have a pitcher move? Still a possibility. But I don't know. I have nothing else to add to this conversation at this time. Do you?
Just keep your eyes, because this is a surprise to me. Blake Snell. His name has surfaced in trade talks, and you talk about complete disasters. There wasn't any worse disaster since entire buildings have collapsed. But did you see what he did yesterday? He struck out, and I want to make sure I get this right. 15 strikeouts in 6 innings. He's the first pitcher ever to ever do that. And so he's going to have some value if he gets traded. So just keep your eyes on that.
And I don't know that San Francisco can afford to trade him right now.
No, because he's going to be gone at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, San Francisco's actually in it too in the wild card hunt. You got to determine.
Way, yeah.
You got to determine.
Realistically, no. And just as a reminder that the trade deadline is Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern. So,
but there can be trades after the trade deadline. This is the weird. Baseball's so weird. It seems like every year the trade deadline passes, and then like 2 days later, there's another trade that happens somehow, and they work it out. I don't know. Baseball's weird. Anyways, I want to talk more about San Francisco, but I want to wait till the next segment. The Fantasy Burners presented by SeatGeek, SeatGeek.com. Use the code BellyUpSports at checkout. You're going to get $20 off your purchase. That's it for the Fantasy Burner. Let's head into segment number 2, the call to the pen. Call to the pen is presented by Righteous Felon Jerky. If you like things that taste good, well, then Righteous Felon's the place for you.
Hopefully that's what you like.
RighteousFelon.com and use the code STOVE15. You're going to get 15% off your purchase every time that you're there. And so make sure you check that out. RighteousFelon.com. The code is STOVE15. Kevin, Devin Williams is back. His season debut today. 1 inning pitched. He allowed 1 hit, had 1 walk, had 1 strikeout, no runs scored in his outing. We were looking forward to him coming into the season. Not sure what it was going to be like. Expecting pretty good things out of him. He fractured his back. And so his season debut today, as a Brewers fan, obviously I'm ecstatic. I don't know. What's your thoughts on Devin Williams' return?
Well, if he's at the top of his game, that's what you want. And that's what I kind of expect, because you don't have to worry about overworking him. The Brewers aren't going to do that. So it's kind of like the Brewers made a trade to add a closer to their team. So that strengthens their bullpen, and they probably have a different attitude in that clubhouse just because he's back there. And so I think this is a big, big thing for Milwaukee.
So Milwaukee has had, I'm counting it up real quick here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 different guys get saves this season. And 4 of those have multiple saves as well. McGill has been the main guy with 20 saves, but Payamps, Uribe, who had a lengthy suspension, and Peguero all come in and get multiple saves this season. And having a guy that can be the guy in Devin Williams is going to be major. And then having those guys with that back end experience for the rest of the season, when you can put a guy in the 7th inning who has multiple saves for you on the year, and the guy that comes in the 8th has multiple saves for you this year, and then the guy in the 9th is Devin Williams, you're sitting a lot prettier than when Devin Williams is on the injured list. So it's exciting times for Milwaukee right now.
Yeah, I really, really, I know you like him, and I like him as well. So that's big news for Milwaukee.
I want to come back to the San Francisco topic because the Dodgers lead the division. San Diego 6.5 back. Both San Diego and the Dodgers have had a pretty decent stretch as of late. Arizona is 7.5 back. They're the team still I'm more excited about than any of them in the West. San Francisco, though, has won 4 straight. They got this kid that we'll talk about in the ads that has been Tyler Fitzgerald. He's been phenomenal. They've got other guys who stepped. Now, granted, they haven't played a great team in this last series, but San Francisco, again, are they staying enough in the hunt where they're not allowed to sell here at the trade deadline, where they actually have to just kind of hold steady or add because they're still in this wild card race?
Well, that puts them in a really difficult spot. Them and the Rangers both are in tough spots because you're kind of there, but really, let's be realistic. Especially with the Giants, they've got 3 teams ahead of them in their own division. That's a tough. And
yes,
so,
but we talk about these trade deadlines, right?
right,
San Francisco just acquired Robbie Ray off the injured list.
right. That's like a trade for them.
And he looked pretty solid.
He did.
Then what? I think it's Cobb, right? That's coming back from injury here shortly.
Yeah, I'm a little less enthused about that. So.
Then they've got Snell, who looks like maybe he's figured it out.
Yeah,
and they got this young kid who might get optioned back down since the Robbie Ray's return, who had a phenomenal outing in his last outing. I don't know that San Francisco is far enough away. I don't know that they can't catch Arizona and San Diego. And I don't think you can sell right now, even with a guy who is 1-year contract. He's going to be gone after this. I'm not sure you're going to get enough back for Blake Snell to make it worth trading him. I think you stick it out and just see what the season brings you.
That was one of the issues we said about the trade deadline, because there's so many teams that are still in it.
Yeah.
So there may not be a lot of sellers. And so if you're the Giants, go for it. I'd rather them sell off so we don't have to worry about them. So, but that's just me. But it's going to be interesting what they do. And they need some offense. Their offense, of course, where they play doesn't help a whole lot. But
yeah,
they need offense. A lot of teams need offense, though. So
yeah,
we'll see what they do. If they hold on to Blake Snell, that all the chips are in. So 48 hours, we'll know what's going on with him.
The Mets are a wild card team as of right now. They bring in Jesse Winker on the outfield to try to give him a little bit of a boost there. They brought in Ryan Stanek, who, like I said, I'm not a fan of in this trade, and he blew it today. But they're sitting there in the wild card spot. Another team that I sit here and go, man, they could have blown it up. They could have went all in on a rebuild. They chose not to do that. At least up to this point, it doesn't sound like they're going to. I look at the National League and I go, okay, we've got the Phillies, the Dodgers, the Brewers, all respectable. Atlanta's beat up, so no one's worried about them. San Diego is, they should be good. And if they get the playoffs, maybe. Arizona, they were in the World Series last year, so if they get there, maybe. But I mean, the Mets, the Cardinals, the Pirates, the Giants, the Cubs, the Reds,
let's not get crazy.
It's the top 3, and that's kind of it, in my opinion, right now in the National League.
Especially what happened, because it was real unfortunate on the Mets side of things. Because last week I talked about how I'm all in on Cody Singa, and he went out there. He pitched extremely well in his first start, but then he tried to get out of the way of his fielders trying to get a pop-up, and he tore up his left calf.
Yeah.
So he's out for the season now.
Yeah.
So that does not help at all. They were hoping for a boost and they were getting it, but it's not going to work out for them. And so you talk about a double punch right to the gut. I don't know how they overcome that at all.
Yeah. He's the Aaron Rodgers of baseball. Like, get all excited about him coming in and he's gone very quickly, just as quick as he came. Yeah, that's tough. Let's talk about the Cubs and one of my favorite segments, the Council Curse. Let's pull up the graph. All right, so the Council Curse obviously is the fact that baseball gods are cursing the Cubs because of Craig Counsell and his despicableness. And they bring in Isaac Paredes, who I like. They got rid of Christopher Morel, who may be the benefactor of the worst of it when it comes to the Council Curse. You could argue there's a few guys probably there to argue about that. But in 2023, Christopher Morel, he played 107 games. He had 26 home runs, 62 runs, 70 RBIs, 6 stolen bases. He hit 247. He got caught stealing twice, and his WAR was 1.5. Now, since Craig Counsell came in,
I
everything,
can't wait to hear this. I know where you're headed.
he's played 102 games for the Cubs, so 5 less than last season. He's hit 18 home runs, which is 8 less than last season. 43 runs, which is 19 less than games last season. 51 RBIs, which is 19 less than last season. 7 stolen bases, which is 1 better than the previous season. He's batting 199. That's a 50-point drop. He's been caught stealing 5 times, and his WAR this season with the Cubs in 102 games is negative 0.1. Christopher Morel took a hard left turn this season.
Right,
and he's not the only one, by the way, on the Cubs roster.
No, not by a long shot.
But he's 25 years old. He gets traded because he's having this horrible season. But I just sit here and go, I don't think it's his fault. I think it's Craig Counsell's fault. I look at Christopher Morel and I just say, congratulations. You got out from underneath the curse. He's probably going to go off. Like Christopher Morel's about to hit 20 home runs, steal 14 bases. And he's probably going to bat like 302 the rest of the season. So we're going to keep an eye on Christopher Morel moving forward and seeing
keep
how
an eye on him. I'm not making any moves on him until I see that the curse has fully divested itself from him.
So you lack faith, Kevin. And
I lack faith, and you know why I lack faith? Because 1 for 17 with 1 run, no RBIs.
Yeah,
that's what he's done lately.
Hey,
and as we mentioned, Tampa is stripped down. They have no offense down there. So I have no confidence in that whatsoever.
But
so just reset, and then maybe next year, you get the foxtail out and you brush that curse off you, and then start over next year.
Listen,
that's what I look at him.
Tampa's building a new stadium. The baseball gods approve.
For 3 years from now,
small stadium. It's going to be intimate setting. Everyone's going to be close to the field. It's going to be a great baseball setting. And the baseball gods applaud Tampa. So watch out. Christopher Morel for MVP. Okay, maybe not that, but watch for the upside in Christopher Morel. And by the way, I do think Isaac Paredes is going to be fine in Chicago also. I think his fantasy numbers are going to be good, at least where they are now.
I hope so. I have him on 2 fantasy teams. So hopefully that he keeps the stink off of him until at least at the end of the year.
Okay. Let's go to the AL real quick. Baltimore, New York, still right there. 1.5 games difference. New York's at 1.5 back. Boston 6 back. They didn't have a great week, and Boston is this team that is like, I think they're a wild card team. I don't think that's even much of an argument at this point. I really do think that they're going to be good enough to be there. They got to watch out for the West and for Minnesota,
and Kansas City. I know you don't like them. But right now, Kansas City's in the playoffs.
Yes. I would be fine with Kansas City making it. I like Kansas City better than I like Boston. I have a hard time believing they're going to be able to.
Well, even their starting pitching, that's where it all comes down to.
Yeah, but they acquired a starting pitcher who went out injured today in Harvey. I don't know, man. I just have a hard time seeing Kansas City keep it up. That being said,
chips
Baltimore,
are in
Cleveland, New York, we trust in those teams. Houston is now on top, and they're up by a half a game and a half.
Let's take a look here. Yes.
Houston, sorry, they're even as far as percentages go with Seattle right now. But that being said, if I asked you who do you believe in more, Houston or Seattle, although we like Seattle,
I'll tell you why. Seattle got swept at home by the Los Angeles Angels. There was no defense for that whatsoever. I can see you maybe because Houston went in there and won a 2 out of 3. Houston, as we know, is a solid team, but you cannot be swept at home by the Angels and expect me to take you seriously. I'm sorry. I'm just not buying it. And as I mentioned, they've only brought in Randy Rosarina. That does not ignite whatsoever. So I have no faith in the Mariners. I want to have faith in them, but I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I like him as a wild card team still. Well, I like Houston in the division. I think, we got a comment before we even came on the air. We had a comment on YouTube from our friend over on the Locked On Cougs, which is Parker Ainsworth. And he says, where are my Astros go, or what are my Astros going to do? Everyone's making trades. I'm feeling left out. Well, first of all, I still think Houston gets a first baseman. I think before it's all said and done, I think Houston has some power at first base, although John Singleton's done some really nice things offensively. I'm not worried about Houston at all.
For Bell out of Miami.
Yeah. I think that's a logical last choice for them. Obviously not their first choice, but I think that makes sense. That being said, though, I look at this AL, and again, it's kind of like the NL. I like Cleveland, I like New York, I like Baltimore, and everybody else. I'm just kind of like, they're going to be in the playoffs, but I'm not really worried. And Houston, listen, they have good management. They've got veterans who have been there, done that. I still think they win the West. I said that from day one of this. I've not came off of that. But right now, I think it's Baltimore, the Yankees, and Cleveland, and that's kind of it.
I agree with you on that as well. So even, we talked about the National League a bit ago. Even Philadelphia is struggling at present. They've lost 4 straight series now.
Yeah.
I think they get it together. I think they're still the best team, but every team struggles. Houston's already been through it. So I like them coming down the stretch a whole lot.
All right. We'll continue to keep an eye on Kansas City and Boston and see what shakes out there as well. All right. Anything else before we transition to back to fantasy?
We need to mention, because there was a no-hitter this week.
Right.
San Diego Padres. It took them, what is it, 50 years to get their first one. Okay.
And they had one last year.
Yeah. I think it was, I don't know if it was last year, maybe the year before, but
was it 2 years ago?
I think so. Time flies, you know what I'm saying? And but Dylan Cease, okay. No hits versus Washington. Good to go. That's the second one of the season. And so you got to highlight that. We didn't mention about your guy, Christian Yelich, going on the IL. That is unfortunate.
That is so unfortunate, Kevin.
It is. It really is. Because he's trying to do all these things, but the way they're talking, he may be done for the season.
So let me give you the inside scoop on this one.
Okay.
I think he should be done. I think he's going to try to come back and play.
I think he said as much.
Yeah, he's going to try to finish out the year and then get surgery at the end of the year. I really wish he would just go get his surgery and move on. We don't have anybody like Yelich on the team, but we got outfielders, young outfielders, defensively perfectly fine. Offensively, we need some guys to pick it up. That being said, I would not be shocked at all if Luis Robert ends up on the Milwaukee Brewers. And
that's the name to look out for.
They can put him at DH because they have the outfielders that can play. He doesn't have to be in the field, and that's the kind of swing they're going to take here. I think by Tuesday, they're going to try to get somebody, a bat of some sort, whether it's an outfielder or not is a whole nother thing. But they've been connected with the White Sox now for a couple of years, and they haven't really been able to get much done. And I just feel like they're close on something there. Now, that being said, I've heard, Robert's name brought up to Philadelphia, and places like that too. So maybe it doesn't get done, but, that's a big loss for Milwaukee. Yelich was playing not as good as his MVP season, but as good as he's played since that MVP season, this year. He's just been a solid piece there for sure. And what about your boy, Bailey Ober?
I want to give out a special shout out to Freddie Freeman, the Dodgers first baseman.
Yeah.
Because he's got an emergency with his 3-year-old son. And we don't need to know what it is, but it's a 3-year-old son. So, prayers for him. Hopefully that he'll be completely and healthy. And that's the important thing, not whether or not Freddie Freeman can play baseball, but his 3-year-old son is healthy.
Yeah, and I saw his wife posted an update today, a little bit, and all the tests have come back negative, which is a good thing. But they're still trying to figure some stuff out and everything there too. One more baseball related thing though, Kevin, is Bailey Ober. He went 8 innings, 1 hit, and 11 strikeouts today. And he's that guy that we're just looking at going, there have been moments where you're like, wow, Bailey Ober. And then there's other moments where you're like, oh, Bailey Ober.
Bailey Ober. Oh,
today was a good one for him.
Okay. So that's good. So, Minnesota can get pitching like that too, if they do. They're a dangerous team, but until they make the playoffs, and we know it goes down the drain after that. Especially if they have to play the Yankees in the postseason, they've got no shot.
Right. Okay. That is it for the Call to the Pin, presented by Righteous Felon. Go to righteousfelon.com. Use the code SNOW15 to get 15% off your purchase. Let's go into our final segment of the day. We call it the Fantasy Focus. Fantasy Focus is presented by BellyUpFantasySports.com. It is the place where you find all of Kevin Wilson's articles, or at least 99% of Kevin
98.8%, yeah,
are there at BellyUpFantasySports.com. A lot of football content getting ready to come out as well with football getting started. So make sure you go check that out also. All right, Kevin, let's get into our ads and drops. And I want to do what we've done before. Let's start with the drops and just kind of get through those quickly, and then we'll spend some time on the ads tonight. Okay. Who do you have as drops tonight?
Okay, so I'm going to go to pitching first, and Toronto leads the way, and Chris Bassett at 68.2% rostered.
Oh,
all right. So 1.41 whip,
Kevin.
1.41 whip. That is not good. All right. So we look at this, and his last 21 innings, he's given up 15 runs on 25 hits. Tuesday at Baltimore, no thank you whatsoever. I want nothing to do with that. And then his fellow pitcher, I think I brought him up last week, UC Kikuchi. He's a little less at 33.7% rostered. He's got a 4.75 ERA in his 14 in the last third inning, 16 earned runs on 19 hits. Let's see, he's done -3, 6, -1 Wednesday at Baltimore. No, thank you very much. And then we've got Nestor Cortez, the New York Yankees, at 46.2% rostered. And in his last 13.1 innings, 15 runs, 6 walks, just 10 Ks. Wednesday at Philadelphia. No, thank you very much. And then I got a couple of bats. Let's see. I mentioned to you in the pregame, Jonah Heim, catcher for Texas, went 2 for 4 on Friday, but is 3 for 38 otherwise. And Jonathan India from the Cincinnati Reds, okay, 0 for 15, last 6. He's gone -1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay, so those are my drops right there. No thank you on all of them.
Man, you're stepping on my toes. I got a couple of those guys on some rosters. And I've been trying to trade Chris Bassett for 2 weeks, and nobody will take him.
I wouldn't want
him. Maybe I'll have to let him go. Let's see here. I've got Minnesota catcher Ryan Jeffers. He's 43% owned, almost 44% owned.
Yeah, I don't get that. He doesn't play every day.
Well, yeah, in the last week, he's played a fair amount actually last week. 20 at bats, only 4 hits. He's batting 200, 1 RBI, no home runs, 3 fantasy points in the entire week. He had a negative day against Detroit yesterday. A 3-pointer against Philadelphia back on the 22nd. It's not been pretty. There's plenty of catchers out there. Go out and get you a catcher that can do something. And then Josh Lau in Tampa, outfielder, DH. He's batting 212 on the year with 5 home runs. He hasn't had a home run in a really, really long time. Hasn't had more than 2 fantasy points at all this month. It's been ugly. He shouldn't be on your team right now. You can find people that can do what he's doing better and make a lot more fantasy relevance because of it too. So those are the only 2 I got for you tonight on the drops side of things. Let's head over to the additions, and Kevin, I'm going to start us off, and I would assume that if you didn't put this guy on your list, it's just because He should be rostered probably in 100% of leagues right now. Tyler Fitzgerald in San Francisco. He's owned in 25.9% of leagues, and that 25% owned has all come in the last couple of days.
I was getting ready to say that's got to be like what, plus 25%?
Yes. Outfield and shortstop eligible, and his 9 games back up, he has gone 14 of 32, 7 home runs, 12 RBIs, only struck out 8 times in those 32 at bats. He's been phenomenal, and again, giving you that flexibility of outfield and shortstop. He's getting picked up very quickly. He, in every league I'm in, he is on a roster. So I'm surprised that he's still available in 75% of leagues, but he's been really solid, and this isn't his first time up. He's played before. He was just another guy, but right now in San Francisco, things are looking good. So get it while it's hot. Tyler Fitzgerald, outfield shortstop.
Absolutely. I knew that you were going to go there. And so, and the first guy I'm going to go with is the guy that you went with just last week. And that's Juan Yepez. Okay. And he's at 18.6% rostered, 15.6% rise in the last week. Okay. So he had 5 hits Friday and Saturday. So that's first. Hits in 13 of 14 games. He has 2 hits. He had 2 hits in 4 straight games. And 7 of 11 games, he had 2 or more hits. That's the definition of hot right there. And so if you're needing a player that don't be scared off because it's Washington, he's hot, I would go and get him this very second, because 18.6% rostered for what he's done won't last. So if you need a player, get Yepez on your team and do it as soon as we're done here.
I like it. I'm going to go to Colorado. 9.7% owned, first base and outfield eligible, Michael Toglia. In the last week, he hit a home run again today. Had another home run against San Francisco 2 days ago, 2 home runs against Boston on the 24th. He's got, let's see here, those 3 home runs. 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, 1 stolen base, but he's hitting 300 on the season. He's hitting 215, but as of late, he's hitting 300, 364 on base percentage, 567 slugging percentage. We know that he was at San Francisco in this most recent series, but we like Colorado hitters at Colorado. And I really like what he's been doing here as of late as well. So Michael Toglia is available in 90% of leagues right now. And let's see here. He had an 18-pointer back in the 14th, 3 home runs against the Mets. But he did have a -4 outing on the 21st. Other than that, he's pretty much been 3 or better in most of these games. So I like him. I like the ballpark he hits in. And, Colorado, I don't like Colorado. Don't like much about Colorado. But I like Michael Toglia right now.
Yeah, you might have missed the boat on that because they played a doubleheader yesterday, and I got him on my team.
Okay.
So that's just that. So the next guy I'm going to go with is Tyler Phillips of the Philadelphia Phillies. He's at 13.2% rostered, but if you're in our league and you're watching, don't even think about it because Nathan has him on his team, and Nathan has turned himself into a fantasy monster.
Yep.
So shout out to him. Shout out to you, Nathan, if you're watching this. But okay, so versus Cleveland. 9 innings, not 7, not 8, 9 innings, no runs, 4 hits, struck out 4, walked 1. 3-0 on the season, 1.80 ERA, 0.76 whip. Doesn't get any better than that. 0.76 whip. Okay, so, and Friday he pitches at Seattle, and as we mentioned, they can match him pitch for pitch, but their offense is not good. So that's a plus matchup to me. And so in his last 3 starts, he's gone 6, 6, and then 9. So I like what he's doing a lot over there. He's got a good team backing him up. So if you're in a league other than ours and he's available, you need pitching, go ahead. Tyler Phillips is almost right up there in the must-add category for me.
I like it. 19% owned, Miami Marlin, Jake Berger. We've talked about him before. Third base, first base, and DH eligible. he's just really turned into a consistent performance here in the month of July. Like some things that he did. They played Cincinnati, the Mets, the Orioles, and the Brewers in their most recent starts. And he's done pretty solid throughout those series. Did great against the Mets, by the way. But I like what he's been doing. Like I said, it's just been consistent and giving you that first base, third base eligibility, plus the DH. If you got a DH spot, you got to fill it. So it gives you that as well. Again, just like Colorado, I don't really like Miami. I don't like much that's going on there fantasy-wise. But Jake Berger, being as consistent as he's been, has been solid. So if you need someone on the corners, he's a good one to add.
Okay, so a guy that I've talked about, I believe, last week, and he kind of let me down, and that's Michael Wacha of Kansas City.
Yeah.
Okay. He only got you 2 points this past Wednesday. And so we can talk about stats and do everything else, but the bottom line is Tuesday versus Chicago White Sox. I need to say nothing more. Okay. Any pitcher, and I followed my own advice. I had 3 pitchers of the Texas Rangers go up against the Chicago White Sox, and they all came through. Even Michael Lorenzen, who got blowed up in his next start against Toronto, but you're fine against the Chicago White Sox. And let's see, 16.8% rostered. So he's available, and he's pitching against the White Sox. Go get him. That's all. No, nothing more needs to be said. Chicago White Sox, get him.
I'm going to go to one of the unluckiest teams of the year this year, and that's the Atlanta Braves.
Okay.
They have been absolutely beaten up, but at 13.3% owned, starting pitcher Spencer Schwellenbach has looked like a legit pitcher here these last several games. Against, let's see here, Philadelphia on the July the 6th, he went 6 innings, 6 strikeouts, and a win with a 1.5 ERA. Against San Diego on the 12th, he went 7 innings, 3 strikeouts, allowing only 1 run, a 1.29 ERA, gets the win. Against St. Louis on the 21st, he went 6 innings. He did allow 4 earned runs. He had 8 strikeouts. He did give up the loss in that one. And then against the Mets yesterday, another 7-inning performance, 11 strikeouts, no earned runs, and the win. Friday, he faces off against the Miami Marlins. He's been pitching really, really good. You throw it there at home against Miami. I like what he's been doing. Even with injuries there, it's still a good team. And so he's got some help behind him there too. His season ERA is at 4.06, but his last 2 starts, he's at 2.77, 46 fantasy points in the last 2, 36 against the Mets, by the way. Against San Diego and Philadelphia, he had 20 plus fantasy points each. So I really like what Spencer Schwellenbach is doing. If you're looking for streamers later this week, or looking to take a shot on a young guy that can give you something the rest of the season, I like Spencer Schwellenbach in that spot.
I like him as well. And one pitcher that I have discussed in the past is Cal Quantrill. We're going back to the Colorado Rockies. I don't know.
Yeah.
Might want to, as I mentioned, I was in the heat all day long. So maybe, might want to check me on that one. But this is the thing about him. He's got a 4.09 ERA, but 4.09 ERA is probably a 3.09 ERA anywhere else. So he's pitching well. He's gone 6 innings in his last 2 starts. Wednesday, he's not at home, at the LA Angels. And their offense, which has been missing all season, if he's not traded, let me just put that in there because he's another guy that could get traded. If he's not, Tuesday against the LA Angels, all in.
Let me give you one more guy that's not currently at the major league level, but with all these trades going on, Tampa has unloaded the most people. Junior Caminero, he has been AAA. He got injured, came back in the middle of July, and has looked okay in his return. He is the next prospect to come up in Tampa, and now's the time to start paying attention to that. So Junior Caminero is going to be a guy that's going to come up at some point this season. I would assume sooner rather than later. And again, especially with them making all these trades right now, you look at this Tampa team, and you should probably do this with any team that has made a lot of trades. That's bad. Go through and kind of look at their roster, see who's going to come up, see who's going to do what, with that. Right now, they've got Yandy Diaz, who is he's a fine fantasy player. Outside of that, Jose Caballero has been on teams in almost every league I'm in, but he's only 10% owned. I don't know that he should be on teams. Josh Lau, I talked about earlier. He's on my drop list. Paredes is gone, so Morel comes in. He's going to be owned by people in fantasy. Outside of those two guys, Yandy Diaz and Christopher Morel, there's nobody here that's being owned in fantasy. So guys like Junior Caminero can come up. They're going to get a lot of playing time, and he's the top prospect. He's going to have a chance in their program. And so he's going to have a chance when he does get called up. So I think you need to keep an eye on him. Maybe go check out, I was trying to think of Washington, maybe go check out their roster and see what's going on over there too. They've got some guys that they've been moving around as well. You brought up the one guy, we've talked about him 2 weeks in a row now. So, there's some options on these bad teams to get some guys that are going to come up, and maybe you can sneak them on your roster and hit big here in this last final run. We've seen some rookies have great final months of the season by just getting a chance to come up and play in the final month. So I'm curious about those. And then of course I can always go homer with you and go to Milwaukee and look at what's going on, with Yelich being out now. You're going to see more consistency in the outfield. We've already talked about Churios. Churio, he's I think he should be on a roster. He is on 28% of rosters. He's going to get all kinds of playing time now with Yelich down. Then you got to look at the guys like Garrett Mitchell and Sal Frelick. Can they find consistency? If they do, you got something. If they don't, obviously you're in the negative. So those are the kind of things you want to look for right now. You want to go search the rosters and see, okay, if this guy's out, who's taking his spot? And if it's an unproven guy, sometimes it's worth taking a shot, especially if you're in the tail end of the playoff hunt, or maybe you've got a big lead in the playoff hunt. Now, let's see if this guy can give me something extra, and whatever from there. So any other thoughts on ads and drops?
Well, I had just one other player. He is, in fact, on the roster, but apparently no one on fantasy is paying too much attention to him. That's Matt Verling from the Detroit Tigers.
Yeah.
Outfield third baseman. All right. And at 10.2% roster, 13 homers, 42 RBIs, hits in 10 of his last 13 games. So pretty hot over there. 9 runs. All right. And I'm still trying to adjust to my new surroundings here. Okay. So let's see. He had 2 stolen bases yesterday, his first stolen bases of the year. And so 5 games or 2 or more hits in those 13 games that I mentioned. So he is swinging a hot bat. Detroit has not surrendered yet on the season. And so he's still playing legitimate baseball over there. So I like him. I like players of multi-position validation.
Yeah.
And so I like him a lot. So at 10% roster, he's available. If you need outfielder third, go get him.
I like it. In our fantasy league this week, we've had an interesting turn of events. I threw in the towel. I decided, come Saturday, I was like, what's the point of going and adding guys right now? I'm just going to play this one out. I could have beaten all but 2 teams this week with my scoring, but I could not beat the guy that I was playing against. Nathan Nguyen, you brought him up. Last place in our league last year, has really turned it on. My question is it too little too late? Nate, you've turned it on. You are a legit threat, but you're outside of the playoffs right now. And Kevin, you got a massive win this week against Dan D'Amico, who is 14-2 on the year. And I think this is the second time you've beat Dan, right?
Yep. He's 14-3 now, and 2 of those losses have come to me. And so that's big for me. And so now I've got the second place team coming up in Chase. So my redemption is not yet complete. So
well, you've got Nate nipping at your heels. I mean, if you don't
That's
get
what
wins,
I'm saying. Yeah.
Nate does. Yeah, you have to win. And you absolutely dominated Dan. I haven't looked to see what his issue was this week, but we had a lot of low scores this week. and Dan was one of those. Chase is now first place in the he's our returning champion, but he didn't dominate this week. He almost got beat by Mike. Dad got a win this week too to stay in the hunt also. But right now, I mean, the watch and the eyes are on Kevin and Nate to see who gets spot number 4. Although you could still eclipse me, there's enough time for you to do so. I was on a 10-week win streak, Kevin, and it came to a squealing halt against Nathan Nguyen this week. But like I said, I could have beaten all but 2 teams. That was you and Nathan. Everybody else I could have beat this week. So anyways, like I said, I decided not to go out and grab some pitchers and try a few things. I ended up losing by about 75 points. I figured, what's the point? What's the point in doing that? So I'll play it out. I like the guys on my roster, and figure I'll just stick it out with them. I got guys on the injured list. I've been in all my leagues decimated as of late, and I'm sure a lot of other people have been too. Yelich going on really does hurt for sure. So we'll see, man. I'm playing around with these holds, trying to find the right guys to play in there. I've been burned a few times by our friend out in Baltimore, Kimbrel. He's had some really, really good games, and he's had some negative, actually 2 straight negative games, 3 negative games in his last 4. Yikes. So maybe I got to make some moves.
Yes. Yeah.
I kept Tyler Rogers because they had the doubleheader against Colorado today. I'll probably be dropping him this week as well. He's had some negative performances. My starters, though, Kevin, I'm going to pull this up real quick for you. I know most people don't care, but in my matchup this week, my starters have had the worst performance. Where is the hey, be quiet, dog. We're live on the air.
Somebody's cheering you on, so you got that.
Yeah. All right. So I had Brian Bello, single digits. Let's see here. I had Chris Bassett, 5 points. Freddie Peralta, 1 point. Nick Pavetta, -8 points. Craig Kimbrell, -13 points. It's hard to win a matchup when your starting pitchers are giving you, ones and single digits, and then you got guys giving you negatives too. That's a hard way to go. And by the way, Nathan had Cease, who went 9 innings, like you talked about earlier. He got 39 points in that outing. He also had Phillips, who went 9 innings and got 32 points in that outing as well. So congrats to Nathan. He's doing really, really good right now. And tough week there for sure. From there, we are coming down. Let's see here. We have.
And just so you know,
yeah,
and everybody, I think this is pretty standard. The trade deadline in our league is Friday.
Yeah,
this Friday coming up, and because I looked it up just to make sure I was aware of it, and I was like, wow, that's just a few days away. So if you're looking to make trades, you got to do it by Friday.
We have 5 weeks left in the regular season. You and I, Kevin, are battling this week. I travel to your home, so you're at home this week, which stinks because your air doesn't work. But so me and Kevin playing this week. I've got an actually fairly easy schedule to close out the year after I get through Kevin. I got Dan at the end of the year, but
okay. So me and you are playing. I thought I was playing Chase, but it's me and you.
It's you and I, my friend. Okay. And then, so Kevin, you've got me this week. Nathan has Ryan Capalbo this week. So he's got an easy win.
He's got it, but Dan and Chase are going head to head.
Okay. So that's good for us. And by the way, Nathan closes out the year back-to-back games against Dan and Chase as well. So, some tough schedules for some of these guys for sure. That being said, fantasy baseball rolls on. We are 5 weeks out from the playoffs, and a lot to happen in those 5 weeks time. So if you're knowing your playoffs start, it should be in about 5 weeks. Know what your playoff format is. We only allow 4 teams in the playoffs. Maybe yours allows 6 or 8, whatever it may be. You better know what you're trying to get to. For sure as well. All right, Kevin, what do you got going on this week?
Well, I stepped my toe. Maybe it's a whole foot by now. In the regular belly up side, I wrote an article because all the camps, they're all open, they're all functional. And so I wrote an article, when is the first game for each team? And so it's on the belly up side of things. And I'm thinking I'm going to wait till the trade deadline does expire, and then I'm going to drop an article about pretty much what we've spoke about tonight, about some trades and their impact on fantasy. So you can look forward to that on the Belly Up Fantasy website. And as you mentioned, there's going to be a switch over at some point to football, because there has to be, because football is coming at us like a freight train. So that might be happening sooner rather than later. So that's, look forward to that on the Belly Up Fantasy side. And you can always get me on Twitter or X or whatever at Kevin62WILSCA.
Awesome. I've got a show tomorrow night talking with head football coach Walt Wells from EKU, and also the voice of the Colonels, the guy that does all the play-by-play for most of their sports, Greg Stoudemire. He's going in the EKU Hall of Fame this year as well. So I'll be talking with both of them tomorrow. Wednesday night, the plan is for me and Dad to cover the AFC and NFC North divisions and South divisions. As we preview those divisions, we're talking win totals, we're talking ceilings, we're talking positions, ranking positions, and things like that too. A lot of fun. So join us for that. I haven't really talked much Olympics. I tried to watch some of the basketball game today, and some of the kayaking the other day, and just some of the things here and there. Go America. That's who I'm cheering for.
Go America, swimmers. All right.
Yeah, all of them, not just the swimmers. All the American athletes.
Well, especially swimmers, because that's what I did in high school.
Okay. So there you go. All right. You can follow me at Sports Stove on Twitter and Instagram as well, and drop any content related stuff there. Continuing to work on a documentary. We got a couple more interviews done on that, so we're making some progress. Give you more information when that comes out, but about Tennessee Titans safety Matthew Jackson. Loving where it's headed. Really excited about that project. So we'll continue to let you know about that project as well. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you check out bellyupfantasysports.com, righteousfelon.com, and seatgeek.com. Use those codes that we've given you throughout the show as well. Thanks to Kevin as always. Until next time, we'll see you around the sports stove.
Everybody have a great week.